when you say capitalism to a lot of people, their first instinct isn't to go to the individual, but to the large corporate conglomerate. Would you have anything to say to those folks like, hey, here's a reason why you might want to rethink that and think about the better framing to look at capitalism? Well, thank you all. I would like to welcome Josh Hall, Dean of the West Virginia University John Chambers School of Business,
College of Business and Economics.
John Chambers College of Business and Economics, and the Milan Puskar Chair in Economics. Am I correct on that?
Correct.
And today he's going to talk with us a little bit about business education, a little bit about capitalism, because here we are at the University of Illinois at Springfield. We're hosting our summer seminar with the American Institute for Economic Research. And Josh Hall was gracious enough to be one of our fantastic speakers. And we just couldn't get enough. So we have a few more questions we need to ask him. And Josh, I want to ask you this question here. I've been asking everybody, right? So to you, what does capitalism mean?
Well, I think that's a hard thing to unpack, because I think it means lots of things. I always start with the individual nature of it, right? And the capitalism part is, how do we interact with one another? What are the rules of the game? How does policy, if you want to call it, how does the institution of society allow us to interact with one another in a peaceful manner that lets us come to agreement on things where we have mutual interests with minimal interference, as long as we're not harming other folks. And it's as basic as that. Maybe I always tell my students I'm a simple economist, and I am. I just think of if it's in econ, it's everything's opportunity costs and prices. And in terms of capitalism, it just starts with the individual and the constraints that government puts on us.
So and let me just follow up just a little bit with that. That's interesting, because when you say capitalism to a lot of people, their first instinct isn't to go to the individual, but to the large corporate conglomerate. Would you have anything to say to those folks like, hey, here's a reason why you might want to rethink that and think about the individual, that would be the better framing to look at capitalism from? I'm not saying that those corporations don't exist and they're not important and they're not good things, but
I think that, to me, it'd be hard to, I don't know how to convince somebody who thinks that's what it is. In Hollywood, movies, TV tell us, that's what capitalism is, or some version of Wall Street. But I think of capitalism, really just the way we organize ourselves individually and pursue our own goals. And the capitalism part is, how do others in society stop us from doing that, even though we're doing something peaceful? And maybe that comes from my co-authorship of the Economic Freedom of the World Index, published by Fraser Institute in Canada and Cato in the US. And that's defined as, you can think of that as a measure of capitalism, but it starts with a free individual and what sort of constraints government put upon them in the economic sphere.
and just a thought, and maybe that's what we see in our students' faces as they come through, that they're the individuals that are trying to succeed in the world.
I think for me, who's someone who started as a teacher and teaching 1,000 students a year, I think, I've always tried to, let's start with the individual. And individuals might form organizations, might end up in large corporations. Many of our students do, but at the end of the day, society progresses by individuals progressing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to think about all those constraints, because what we do in a business school is we're trying to build young women and men up, I think, into being fully actualized adults in the business sphere, but also not. And there's all sorts of constraints. There might be family constraints. There might be emotional constraints they have, but capitalism is just one of those constraints, or not, or lack thereof.
Right.
Yeah.
It deals with that. Um, talking about students, and business schools do a great job with educating students, especially West Virginia. And but here's a question: do you think business schools today are teaching capitalism to their students? And if so, how? And if not, maybe not how not, but are they teaching that element to them?
That is a great question, and in one sense, I can't answer it. And I can't answer it because I don't follow other business schools a lot, and so I don't know what they do. I get the sense that we're very all business schools. The great thing about all business schools is they're focused on placement. They understand that, first of all, the time cost, hopefully 4 years of your life is spent in this endeavor. There should be something at the end of that for it. And, if you're going to benefit, I always say that to parents when their students are coming into the school on that not even orientation, we're trying to convince them to come. And I say, look, I want, when you're 4 years from now, if you come here, when your child walks across that stage, to shake their hand and say, congrats, and them to tell me where they're going to work. And the more we do that, the more successful we be, and the more satisfied I am with my own job. And that's a product I can sell, and I can believe in.
Hmm.
And so I'm very happy to say that for 9 straight years, we have increased our placement at graduation at WVU. I won't say where we started, but now we're at 75.9% of our undergraduate students have a job or in grad school the day they walk across the stage at commencement. And part of that is because we teach skills. I think we have an econ department in the business school. So that's part of your answer is who fundamentally econ is both social science and business,
Hmm.
right?
Yes.
And so I think having the econ department in the business school gives us some ability to provide that social science part, which is this is how society is organized, and in some small way, an understanding of what capitalism is. Do we do that enough, right? I love the Herbert Spencer quote. I'm going to paraphrase here. It takes varied iterations to force alien concepts on unwilling minds. And you kind of need to sit with these ideas for a while to really understand them and their importance in lots of different domains. And so, do we do that? I don't think hardly anybody
Hmm.
does that. And maybe that makes sense. There's only so many hours in the day. But do I think people would be better off if they understood that? Yeah, I think they'd be better. They'd be better off. Um, for better or worse, business schools focus a lot on skills, and skills are important. But we all know students are going to have, several careers. And what's going to help you navigate that, but a better understanding of how a capitalistic society operates and the way you can serve others through the marketplace.
Yeah, and WVU has some great centers that actually deal with this. The Knee Center, I believe, and recent ethics and
The Kendrick Center for an Ethical Economy.
the
Yes.
Kendrick Center for an Ethical Economy. So I think those help reach students at WVU as well?
Well, in some ways they will. The Kendrick Center definitely does. So the Kendrick Center for an Ethical Economy was an idea from an alumnus, Ken and Randy Kendrick. Ken Kendrick is the general managing partner of the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Hmm.
And he cares, even though he lives in Arizona, he cares very deeply for his home state. He grew up in Princeton, West Virginia. and as a graduate of WVU and the Chambers College. Uh, and he like every West Virginian hates the idea that he had to leave the state to make his fortune. And he and Randy decided to give back by funding this Kendrick Center, which brings some faculty there. But what it does is it does several things, but one of its things is it provides an educational opportunity for very motivated, very high achieving West Virginians to take a 5-course sequence in business ethics and prosperity together. And it also has a leadership component. So many states have leadership West Virginia or leadership Texas. And it's supposed to give familiarity with one another and the problems and opportunities. And so this program has that. So they go all around the state. They go to Charleston, West Virginia to learn about the legislature. They go to, the Greenbrier in Lewisburg, in Greenbrier County to learn about the tourism industry in the state. They learn about, something about the opioid epidemic and some of the issues with dealing with that. And so if these young men and women work in the state for 2 years, thanks to the Kendrick Center, and the generosity of the Kendricks, we cut them a check for $20,000. So it really is an attempt to not only give them the ideas necessary to and familiarity necessary to hopefully transform themselves and the state, but a financial incentive to do so.
Wow. And that leads me into the next question. And this is sort of a nascent idea that the Academy on Capitalism, which I work with, is trying to help develop, not by itself, but by working with other organizations, institutions, and even schools, is that it sounds like what you just talked about is teaching something that's within the practice, endogenous, some might say, right? But within the practice, and that there are values, ethics, that aren't arbitrarily forced on the practice, but if you want to just do the practice, do it well, these are the kind of values you should adopt. Maybe these are the kind of rules that you should follow, etc. Do you see, and because I want to learn from this too, this is a journey for me as well, and hopefully for all of us, but is there a way that principles of classical liberalism inform or could inform a business education, both maybe what you're doing currently and maybe like the next steps we should be looking at in ways we could, not arbitrarily by forcing more classes on them, but by pulling out what's already there, maybe? I don't know. But classical liberalism principles in business, is there a way we can tie them together?
I've been thinking about this a lot since you reached, and maybe one way to characterize it is there's clearly a way that it informs not negative things that you should not do.
Right.
Right? Like if we treat people as individuals with their own plans, we shouldn't try to exploit them, right? We shouldn't try to make them work against their own best interests. We should, if we rise to managerial positions, it is incumbent upon us as leaders to go first, right? And I'm not on social media a lot, but you will often see things about people complaining about, I had this plan, I had taken personal time, and somebody else called in and they're pressuring me and saying and I just quit. If you're doing your job and you're giving your employees the autonomy they deserve, so we have a lot of bad management out there, and I think a proper understanding of how markets work and classical will really should help one stop what is truly, I think, bad behavior and makes people not want to work at certain organizations. The harder thing for me is the positive side of it. I do think there is something there. the social scientist in me has a hard time wrapping because I don't have a counterfactual, I don't have a way of testing it. But if we look at specific companies that have really strong values around building up their employees, and much of, not all, but much of classical liberalism that's not a political theory. It's
Mm.
not about a view of the government, is really about how we treat and respond to one another. Toleration, moderation. Um, if you think about kind of a million type of positive freedom, uh, what are firms but a nexus of people coming together for a common purpose? Well, the value of that, okay, it could be something like intellectual property, patents, trade secrets, but really it's the collection of those people. Think about Boeing, right? Boeing's been in the news a lot lately. I don't know the situation very well, but from what I've read, it seems like a big issue they had is some new management came in and changed the culture with respect to these longtime, very professional engineers. And they lost those folks and the knowledge that was embodied in those individuals. And at the end of the day, strong organizations are about the people in those organizations. So the very core, like treating individuals and building them up. Now, many people say, well, everybody does that. But I think at this core, classical liberalism is about starting with the individual. And, they're a fully autonomous person with their own hopes and dreams and goals, and doing the best we can to help that person while also trying to achieve our own goals.
And it is possible I'm just dreaming of some ideal, but are there any companies out there that you see implementing this in their management practices?
Well, in my talks here, I talk about a couple that have been highlighted. There may be more. These were just two ones that were pointed out to me. And the first was Koch Industries and their principle-based management. At least as written down, it seems very employee affirming. Anytime you give power, especially from the bottom, there has to be a responsibility. And any organization may not live up to their goals, but there is a big difference between companies that won't even write it down, let alone maybe write it down and walk that walk. So the other would be the Morningstar tomato company. The interesting thing, it's a non-hierarchical business. Very fascinating. There's a great Harvard Business Review article about the company. But what I like about it is there is so much value to me in not living like a zombie.
Hmm.
I always think we shouldn't all be Henry David. They're going in the woods, but we should reflect on, well, are we living a purposeful life, whatever that means to us? And are we doing the best and that we can for ourselves and others, right? If we think about the most meaningful things, and maybe this is to get back to the earlier question, maybe that's a would be a real benefit for truly understanding capitalism, would be we understand and feel good about the way we help others and can do well by also doing well by ourselves, right? I know maybe you have this experience with your students. There's a whole lot of anxiety out there. Students don't feel, they're not sure what to do. They're hesitant on what's the best thing. There seems to be a lot of options. We're becoming more specialized as a society. And, I'll just give you an example, something accounting. Used to be, okay, I go tax, I go audit. Well, now you can be a forensic accountant. You can do different types of tax. It's very fragmented. And so if you think about the scariness of these forked paths and I'm going to make a bad investment in myself and stuff. And if instead you think of it as, and I'm going to go in this big corporation, maybe I go to one at EY or one of the big, other big four, and I'm there's a distance between me and the people I'm serving. And it can be hard to think like, what value am I providing to others here? But if you see how you fit into the larger system, maybe that's what gets you, not to quiet quit or not to go do something else where maybe it's more directly providing you that satisfaction, but your contribution to humanity might be a whole lot less. And to me, that's I'm a firm believer in people. And you hate to see somebody not live up to great things. And now look, they have their own things, but if it's misguided, like just didn't understand, right, what they were actually providing.
No, and you can tell me if I'm wrong here, but this is why this is so fun, because you have just connected capitalism and individualism with the benefits of living the examined life, and that's what classical liberalism makes possible in business. And it would be fun in the comments if you go search YouTube. I wonder how many people have said out there that business and the examined life go hand in hand. Usually people think business is something you do, and then if you want the examined life, you go off into the woods like Henry Thoreau. And here you are talking about how, no, it's critically important, but to lead the examined life, one must be free to make those examinations. One must have the ability to have some control over themselves, some authority, but then again, to hold them accountable, they need responsibility. And all of this folds into lessons we've learned about classical liberalism and is an integral part of capitalism.
And I think and I don't want to seem trite with it, but business is not populated just by business people, right? People who have business degrees.
Right.
And you find yourselves in these positions, and there's a lot of business self-help, leadership books in that maybe in a trite way get you to examine yourself. Those are very popular. Why are they popular? Because people, they want that. They need that. Maybe we don't live up to it. Like, do I follow atomic habits every day? No. I might have some, I take something from that. But business people seem very voracious readers of those types of things. And I think it's because once you felt that, you want to do better at it. And so really, I think what we're talking about is accelerating and spreading what almost happens by happenstance. And I've seen this a lot among former students who, when you're applying for jobs, they'll say, I don't want to work for HDL or Fastenal or, you name the company, like something like a shipping company or Aldi. I will tell you, like, our people who go into Aldi's management, first of all, highly compensated. Some of the highest dollar placements coming out of our business school. But it's a dynamic environment. They feel supported, like, and they want to live up to that. And we crave. I mean, I said earlier to the students, I took many things away from theory of moral soundness. The thing I always remember is we crave approbation. And work is a great opportunity for approbation.
And a fulfilling life.
Yes.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Josh Hall,
Thank you, Bill,
for joining us. Thank you for joining us here today for our discussion. Please check out our other videos on YouTube. which I hope that you will find just as fascinating. And please, if you liked it, hit the like button and follow us because we have more great stuff coming to you. Thank you.